Hey guys, it's Maggie from the Apostate Family. I'm sorry I've been slacking so much on making videos. It's been crazy at work. I work in retail, so the last few weeks have been insane, but I'm finally off today and I can make a video. As promised, I wanted to talk about my experience and how I left my abusive ex-husband at the same time that I left Jehovah's Witnesses. It's not... You don't have to go by it exactly. This is just my experience, how I got out safe, and how I got my daughters out safe. So I'm going to go into my background a little bit. I was in the organization for 30 years. I've been out now for almost 10. My ex-husband and I met when I was 18, and I'm not going to go into a lot of what happened when we were dating, but he did end up raping me when we were dating, and my mom's thought process was, instead of me getting disfellowshipped, because after repeating the story of what happened several times, she didn't feel like I had fought back hard enough. So I ended up having to marry my rapist, and just downhill from there. I'm gonna do a video later about that whole situation, but I don't think I can handle that right now. So I'm just gonna go into how I left. We were married for 11 years. Instantly, pretty much from the honeymoon, he started verbally, emotionally, physically, sexually abusing me. It was a living hell. We got married when I was 19. He was 21. Right away, he started drinking. It was a very, very bad situation. And I won't go into before I was married, but I came from a very abusive household as well. So I just went from the frying pan to the fire. So, you know, on our honeymoon, right after the wedding, he immediately said, "Now I have you." And that's really how he looked at our marriage. I was his property. I met him. I was a pioneer. I was doing amazing. I was praying to Jehovah every day for the perfect mate. My older sister had gotten married at 16, and she married an even worse human being than I did. So it was something that was definitely important to me to find that perfect husband. I wanted a partner, and what I found was a monster. You know, the abuse happened immediately after, and it continued through, you know, the pregnancy of both my children. Isabella, my oldest, was not planned, so he was very upset when I got pregnant and would not speak to me the entire 9 months. I was terrified. I was only 20, and I was alone in it. I went to the elders several times about the abuse when I was pregnant, and all they told me was, you know, maybe don't antagonize him. Maybe give him his space when he comes home from work. And that was just worse than the physical abuse itself, just to hear, you know, these men tell you that it's your fault. So, I decided to leave after 11 years. The abuse got worse and worse, and it ended up the night before I left, he actually laid out 4 bullets for his gun, and he forced me to tell him which one was for me, which one was for him, and which one was for each of our daughters. So I knew it was time to go. But I had already been planning my escape for a few months before that. The abuse had gotten so bad, I was showing up at work and at the Kingdom Hall with black eyes, you know, my hands in a cast from fractures and breaks, and it just, for nobody to notice and for nobody to care enough, was devastating. My sister was in the same Kingdom Hall, and you know, my parents came to visit, and my dad would always say, you know, if he gives you another black eye, that's it. But one to me is enough. So I knew that I was the only one that could save myself. I did not expect to leave the organization at that point. I still believed everything that I had lived my whole life to be true. I wanted to continue in the faith with my daughters, but things changed. And so the first thing that I did that really was a pivotal point to me was my sister got me into running. No, it doesn't look like it, but I run every day. And it's just something that I did for my mental health at that point. I got up to running 10 to 13 miles a day just to get away from him. But when I was running, it did something to my brain, and it gave me the self-confidence, and I pushed myself, and I couldn't believe that I could do those things. So you need to find something that makes you happy. You need to find that strength within yourself, because nobody's going to give it to you, and he's definitely going to try to take it away. So that was the first act. I started running, and he downplayed it, and he would just try to take everything away from me. And there would be days where I didn't want to run, and I would look for motivation, and he would just look at me and say, well, you're fat, so go run. Or, just always trying to make me stop doing things that made me happy. So that's what I would say my first step was, to leaving my ex-husband, was to get any kind of self-confidence. He had me to where I couldn't look people in the eye. I couldn't talk to anyone. I wasn't allowed to have any friends. I didn't have any access to our money. So him and his mother controlled our bank accounts. I never knew how much money we had. My ex-husband had a very good job, but we lived like we were extremely poor. So I know he was hiding money from me, and it was just, I had to do something for myself. And it was running. Running was pretty inexpensive. It wasn't something he could control. And you have to find that. You have to find that one thing that they cannot control that's going to make you feel good. And that was my first step of leaving. Everybody else was proud of me, and so it just gave me more motivation to do what I needed to do. And the second step I would definitely say was getting a job. My ex-husband would never let me work. I wasn't even allowed to leave the house. I wasn't even allowed to get the mail. That's how controlled I was. I couldn't breathe. So if I was to go out of the house, it would have had to have been with him. When I was pregnant with Isabella, he destroyed my license when I tried to leave him after he beat me while I was pregnant. So when I went to the elders about it, they told me that I was the luckiest girl they knew, because, how loving of a husband that I had, that would drive me to all my doctor's appointments and take me to, I was pioneering at the time, that would take me out in service all the time. I was so lucky. And that was their solution to me having my license destroyed. A lot of people have made negative comments on things that I've shared before the protest, and saying that it just sounded like I had an abusive husband. It didn't sound like I had a reason to hate this organization. But my ex-husband was never a ministerial servant. He was never an elder. There was no, he didn't even try in the organization. I was the one who was pioneering. I was the one that was doing everything that I possibly could, and never feeling good enough. And yet, when I would go to them, all I heard was, you need to try harder. You're not being a good wife. You're not being submissive. You're having a Jezebel spirit. And these were men that I would have done, whatever they said, I would have done. So I would take everything that they said and go home and apply it. I tried to read the Bible with him. I tried to involve him in everything. My girls right away, we read, every publication we could find. And it was nothing in me this whole time. It was lacking in them. And that it really is a man's world to them. So for me to speak out against my husband was the worst thing I could have possibly done. I should have walked into the Kingdom Hall every day with a black eye or my arm wrapped, or and just held my tongue and just sat there and took it. And to them, that was the best thing I could do because, you know, all these brothers and sisters are getting persecuted in other lands, so how dare I complain? What makes me better than them? This was my cross to bear, no pun intended. But to them, it was me. I was doing something wrong. It wasn't that there was a defect in him. And in later years, I found out he had been in trouble several times with the elders. There was stuff that happened with him and another girl before we got married, and he was disassociated, disassociated and no, reproved, I'm sorry. And I'm forgetting the lingo already for it, and nobody even told me. So he'd been a sexual deviant way before I even met him. And just to hear that things were my fault, knowing that he had this track record, now is unbelievable. And the fact that my parents watched this and my sisters watched this, and nobody helped me. They called me dramatic. They called me an instigator. And all this time pioneering, doing everything I could. I was giving talks. I did have anxiety, so, I wasn't the best at answering at the Kingdom Hall, but I was doing so many things, and to hear that it was still always going to be me was so hard. So that's why I had to build up my self-confidence. And the second part of this that I was talking about is to get a job. I had to get a job because he got injured at work and could no longer work. So that was the best thing that could have happened. I started a job and instantly people liked me. I couldn't even look people in the eyes, and everybody was begging to eat with me at lunch, and they were so excited when I would show up. I worked retail. So then, and just, it amazed me. All these people wanted to be my friend, and I just kept thinking, well, they don't really know me. They're not my true friends. So it was just an eye-opening experience, gave me some more self-confidence, and it was nice to bring home a paycheck, even though he took it instantly and it went right into his account. But that was the second step that I had to do. So if you're in this situation, if you're being abused in any way by your husband or your boyfriend, these are the steps that you have to take. I'm not going to overwhelm you. I'm just going to share 2 things that I did at a time, and I'll try not to be a slacker. But you really need to find something that you love, something that's going to make you feel good about yourself, that he cannot take away. And the second thing to me would be to get a job. I know most people have jobs, but if you're in a relationship like I was in, I was not allowed to leave the house. And it just happened that I was able to get a job. So maybe there's a way that you can have a conversation with him and just say, you need to get out of the house 1 day a week and make that work. And that's the only way that I saved myself and my daughters. So I don't know if this video helped you. I kind of rambled on, but this is a hard subject for me. It's been something I've really pushed down for the last, 9 years. It's something that I haven't thought about. I've just really been happy to have me and my girls and just not deal with anything else. So I'm going to try to draw it out a little bit more, and I hope that I can save somebody out there. And if anybody else has negative comments, you could just keep them to yourself, because I'm not even going to address them anymore. But that's all I have to say. I hope you guys are doing good, and hopefully there'll be another video before Christmas, but if not, everybody have a Merry Christmas. Bye.